really glad you're here tonight. My name is Scott Harker, and I'm a certified gut health specialist. And I work with men and women who are struggling with low energy, gut issues, inflammation, blood sugar imbalances, all kinds of different metabolic issues. And I help them reset their health naturally. And I'm especially excited tonight to be joined by a good friend of mine, Wayne Scholten. Everybody say hi. Hi, Wayne.
Hey, Scott, glad to be here.
Glad you're here tonight. Wayne's experienced a personal health transformation as well as myself, and that's why we're on here tonight. We were supposed to have a good friend of ours, Alan Kashner, on with us tonight, but due to weather in Michigan, as most of you have seen, Michigan got hit with a big snowstorm. He's up in Alpena, so we'd like to send our prayers and our thoughts to everybody up in Michigan and across the United States that's dealing with severe weather. His power is out, not going to be back, it sounds like, for a couple of days. And so we just wish them well, and hopefully everybody gets their power back really, really soon. So going to miss him tonight, but Wayne, I think you and I can do this together. So
we'll give it a shot. We can do it.
Yep. So tonight, if you've been dealing with stubborn weight gain, brain fog, high blood pressure, inflammation, or things like that, and you felt nothing connects, or you haven't been able to, get that fixed, we're going to share something that may completely shift your perspective. So let me shift over here and show you a slide here. Let's do something for a moment. I want you to place yourself in the middle of this wheel, okay? And look around it and take some time if you're on the live tonight and or if you're on a recording and watching the recording on Facebook or YouTube, look around this wheel and drop a 1 in the chat if you are experiencing any of these. Maybe mood swings, you've had high blood pressure, obesity, low energy, brain fog. In fact, what I'd like for you to do is I want you to go ahead and take a moment, and I would like you to tag somebody while we've got time tonight in a Facebook or on YouTube. Pick up a phone and text somebody and send them over to my Facebook page so that they can see this, because we're going to teach something that's could be life-changing for you or them tonight, as it was for Wayne and I. As you look at these symptoms, what if I told you these aren't separate problems? What if I told you they were connected? For example, this may sound weird to you, but what if I told you that mood swings and arthritis are connected? And you're probably going, what? That sounds kind of crazy. You've probably never been told that. High blood pressure, brain fog, those are connected. Well, how are they connected? What if I told you that each and every one of these things on this wheel here tonight had a similar or same root cause? Most doctors treat each of these symptoms as separate. Now, I couldn't fill everything that goes on here that I want to put on here, or you wouldn't have been able to read it on the screen, like IBS, ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, eczema. If you've got those on there, those fit on this wheel as well. And like I said, most doctors treat these as separate type of diseases or symptoms, but they're all connected to one thing, and that is insulin resistance. Tonight is not about willpower. It's not about laziness. This is about a hormone. And once you understand this, I think everything's going to make sense to you after Wayne and I share with what we've been learning over the last year or so. So before we get into the healing part and sharing our story, I want to spend a few moments talking about what insulin is and what insulin resistance is, so that we're all on the same baseline. You see, there's a small organ behind the stomach called the pancreas, and it's not very big, but it has a massive job. Every time we eat, okay, especially carbohydrates, but anytime we eat anything, even proteins, your pancreas senses a rise in that you've eaten, and you get blood sugar rise because our food is converted into sugar, and it releases a thing called insulin. And insulin if I can get my slides to work here, insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas that acts like a key to unlock your cells so sugar can enter and be used for energy. So basically, what insulin is doing is it's pulling that sugar that is in your blood and puts it in your cell so your cells can eat. But the problem is, when we get insulin resistant or we become insulin resistant, that process starts working or stops working effectively, and we become insulin resistant, meaning that our cells are not using the sugar properly anymore. So, for a graphic, I want to show you what's happening here. Basically, when we're insulin resistant, our cells are starving. So, let's compare and contrast a normal cell and a cell that is insulin resistant. On the left side, you're seeing this normal cell where insulin goes into the insulin receptor, that blue thing on the cell up on the left-hand corner of your slide there, where the insulin goes in and basically is like a key, and it goes into the cell and opens a door. And your glucose goes out of the blood and into the cell, and your cells can use that for energy, and you get your blood sugar becomes stable. But when you become insulin resistant, that key is inserted, but the signal is blocked, and we turn the key, and the cell will respond, but doesn't fully respond. So the door opens just a little bit. And so that signal is being blocked, and glucose stays in the blood, and your cells feel low energy. That's why sometimes after you eat, you feel tired, or you're in the afternoons, you get these crashes, or we get into fatigue. And that's what is going on with our cells, that we become insulin resistant. For example, our cells are now becoming deaf to insulin. It doesn't hear. Imagine someone just coming up and knocking on your door and just continuing to knock on it, knock, 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 right? And you eventually just quit listening to it. Well, that's what happens when our cells become insulin resistant, because as we eat all the time, and we're going to talk more about that, we eat a lot of meals all day, okay? We start to become insulin resistant, and it starts to ignore it. So when insulin stays high, our body shifts into what we call storage mode. Your body cannot burn fat, and it doesn't matter how hard you try. Instead of burning fuel, your body stores it. Belly fat increases, triglycerides, which are stored in your liver, increases. How many of you ever been told your triglycerides are high? Right? That's not random, and the reason is because we stay in the fat storage mode most of the time, and that's where most of us are at. So high insulin also creates energy crashes. Have you ever felt tired after eating? Right? That's blood sugar swings, cravings. That's your brain trying to stabilize that low cellular energy that I just talked about. Blood sugar swings, it's not a lack of discipline. You basically are on this roller coaster, right? Now move to the center here where we talk about, or go to all to the right with your brain and your mood. Insulin doesn't just affect fat. It affects your brain fog, mood swings, irritability. And the reason is our cells are not getting the appropriate amount of food that they need to get, and not utilizing that sugar, right? So high insulin is at the root of metabolic dysfunction, and we're going to be taking you through why and how that is occurring. So most people focus on blood sugar, but insulin is the key driver. So you can have normal blood sugar and still have high insulin. So insulin resistance is basically your cells becoming deaf to that insulin, because it never goes down because of our eating habits. Now, what I'd like to do is shift in just for a minute to part of a section where I'm going to have Wayne share with you his story about insulin resistance. And we're going to be talking to you about a protocol that helps us heal from the inside out. And Wayne and I both use this protocol, and as our families do, and want to be able to share this with you. So Wayne, why don't you take us through just a second of what it was like when you were insulin resistant and your healing path as you're becoming more insulin sensitive over the last year or so.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. And I guess to start with is I had no idea I was insulin resistant. I just thought I was getting older. and that was life. Um, we'll back up a little bit. I am a two-time heart attack survivor. My first heart attack was around 10 years ago, and they put a stent in, and I was off and going again. And the second one was about 3 years ago, and I ended up having to have a quadruple bypass surgery. And by the grace of God and fabulous surgeons and hospitals we have here in West Michigan, um, I was saved from that. And my doctor told me, if you don't ever want to see me here and get your chest cracked open again, you will go to the gym 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day. And so I honored that. I did. I went to the gym and I was working out and doing pretty good. But I couldn't lose no weight. I wasn't obesely heavy, and I didn't. I was borderline diabetic, but nothing that we were worried about, and no real flags or anything coming up. And um, the way we got started with this process was through my wife. She had happened to see a member where she works that she hadn't seen for quite a while, and she had just lost a ton of weight, and she was looking just really good. And so my wife Sandy asked her, well, what she did, and she said, "Well, you need to meet my daughter." She said she'll help you, talk to you about it. And her daughter was Amy Van Houten, and so we did. Sandy and I got a hold of Amy. We met with Amy. That was the first time in my life. I'm 68. The first time in my life I heard that word, insulin resistant. And she started talking about being insulin resistant. So I started studying it and started doing a little research on it. And my wife was on the synthetic shot before. We both tried lots of different diets, and we'd lose and we'd gain, we'd lose and we'd gain. She tried the synthetic shot. It was costing us $500 a month, and it really wasn't doing anything. And she was sick 2 days a week, every week. So I said, something's got to change. So when we were introduced to this, um, right away, I said, well, we got to try this. And I said, for what it costs, we can both be on it for way less than what you're spending. So I said, we're both going to try it and see how it goes. And so we did. We had two kits, we got two boxes, and we took it home and we started on it. And, um, within a week, the first thing I noticed was my inflammation, my knees. My doctor told me I had to work out 5 days a week. Well, my knees hurt so bad. I had so much inflammation and achiness in my knees. My knees are bone on bone, and I was thinking I needed a knee replacement. But I honored the doctor by working out while I'd go home and ice my knees because my knees hurt so bad, so I could go back the next day to work out again. And I was doing this, and that's one of the first things we noticed is within a week, all of a sudden, my knees didn't hurt anymore. The inflammation was going down, and I could work out and didn't have to ice my knees at night. And so that was kind of one of the first things I noticed. And uh, Amy had said that's one thing, when I looked up insulin resistance, oh, one of the things was inflammation. And so that's where it started. I noticed the inflammation going out down. Then the weight just started falling off. Yeah, I lost 30 pounds in 3 months and was feeling really good. Brain fog. Scott talked about brain fog. Uh, I had brain fog really bad. 8 hours in anesthesia during my heart surgery gave me a brain fog, and I never really got over that. And everything was always a little bit foggy. But with this protocol that we take, that's another thing I noticed almost immediately is I was so much more alert. I could concentrate. Everything was just making more sense to me, and this whole time I didn't, there again, I didn't know that I was insulin resistant. But the more and more you research it, more and more you study, the more and more got into this thing, how much I realized I was insulin resistant. So we started losing a bunch of weight and my energy. I started actually losing weight. I worked out, though this was 2 years after my heart surgery. I couldn't lose a pound. I was at the gym 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, usually 6 or 7 days a week. I never lost any weight. And I just thought, well, Wayne, you're 68 years old. I was tired. And I says, it's just, that's just your age. Age is catching up with you. You just got to be happy you're alive. And, I was just kind of waiting to go out to pasture and just kind of ease through my life until I was gone. And all of a sudden I realized that I had something to live for. My energy was back. I felt better. I felt it's I don't want to say euphoric, but you just feel good. It's just like it's kind of like a happy drug. You're just feeling good. You're feeling like, you want to continue. And I'll be honest, I feel 10 years younger today. Um, I I honestly didn't think I'd see 75 years old. I had my mind made up that I was slowing down and, getting worse. And I probably wouldn't see 75. And, now I see myself at 85 and I see myself sharing this protocol with however many people I can till the day I die, because it means so much to me that, we're feeling good. We're just helping people feel good. With my blood work, well, I'm off almost all of my prescription medication. My cholesterol medicine's gone. I'm way down on my blood pressure medicine. Acid reflux I had for 30 years. I don't take acid reflux medicine anymore. Um, my blood panels are working better. In fact, I spent a couple days in the hospital, so I had to have some blood work done. And my doctor wanted to see me when I got out of the hospital, and so I went in to see him. And he hadn't seen me since I started the protocol. And first thing he said, "Boy, Wayne," he said, "where's the other half of you that didn't come along?" It was just the weight was one thing, but the inflammation going down, everything just shrunk. It isn't all weight. It's, a lot of it was inflammation in my face and my arms and my legs and all that. And he said, "Man," he said, you look really good." And I said, "Well, I don't know what you think of it. I'm on a new health protocol, and it's working." And so he said, "Well, let's take a look at your blood work." And he said, "Oh yeah, everything's looking good." And then when we got to my kidney function, he stopped there because he said, "Wayne," he said, "What? I don't know what you're doing." He says, "But we've been watching your kidney function for 5 years because it keeps getting lower and lower. Not dangerously low, but we were down to stage 3 kidney failure, and they had to be careful with medicines they gave me." And he said, "That's turning around. It's going the other way." He said, "That just doesn't happen." And I said, "Well," he said, "I don't know what you're doing," but he said, "Continue doing what you're doing because it's working for you." So I did, and so that was just really exciting. That my blood panels are going the right way. And just a quick little side note: my wife Sandy was also in stage 3 kidney failure, and she had her blood work done after the first year, and her doctor was just totally amazed. I mean, she went from stage 3 kidney failure to almost 100% normal kidney function in like 4 months.
Wow.
And the doctor says it's unbelievable. And so that's what this is all about. This is a health protocol, and we kind of tend to talk to people about, hey, if you need to lose some weight, this is a great way to do it, which it is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I've got friends of mine, I've probably 30 or 40, and then some of my drivers that drive with me are on it. And, everybody's talking, 20-pound weight losses. Some are not as much, some are 10-pound weight losses, but in a month. But, some of my diabetic drivers are getting off their insulin medicine. And it's just so cool to get a phone call from them and say, "Hey, Wayne, just thank you for what you did. Thank you for introducing me to this." He said, "I actually feel like I'm going to be able to kick this insulin, the diabetes." And he said, "I had absolutely no, oops, we lost the connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm there. You lost it for a second.
There you go. We're
You're back.
good.
You're back
We're
with
good.
us, Wayne.
I'm back. So anyway, and that's kind of my story. Sandy's got a very similar story. We could talk about that as well. But um, this is not a weight loss program by any means. It is strictly an all natural nutraceutical program that helps us become get rid of our insulin resistance. Like I said, I had no idea what it was, but I'm learning more and more about it. And I realize how all these things were tied together. If I would have known this 10 years ago, I probably would have had 2 heart attacks.
Mm.
But I didn't. And that's life. We move on. But I'm just doing everything. At 68, I look at quantity and quality of life. I see at my age, I see a lot of people my age that are starting to get um, not as mobile. They're getting their quality of life is going down. And we all have an X amount of quantity of life. We don't know what that is, whether that's you know 68 years or 85 years or 50 years or what it is. But I just, I'm so passionate now because I'm looking around and I'm seeing all this diabetes going on, all these young kids with diabetes and other obesity and all this kind of stuff, and it's all because of you know of what's happening in our grocery stores and in our food chains, and we're losing our fiber, and that's what this protocol does. It puts the fiber back into our bodies, and I just I want to help people live longer. I want my friends to live as long as possible, and not only have just a quantity of life, but have a quality of life. And that's where my passion is today, Scott.
Awesome, Wayne. Wayne, you made me think of so many things that I could just talk an hour, 1 hour about on each of the different topics. But if you're watching this tonight, Wayne, you said something about, well, you kind of alluded, hey, things are as you're just getting older, right? We've heard in the past that, hey, well, it's just part of getting older, right? Wayne,
Yeah.
I think you can. I think
Yeah.
you're starting to disprove that, right? It's not about just getting older, right? It's about
It's
starting to heal from the inside. You said a couple other things that I actually wrote down, and I wanted to, and we'll kind of we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but we won't get real deep. But you said it's almost like having a happy drug, right? Is what you said, right?
I don't, I'd be careful what I say, but I don't mean it in a bad way.
No,
But
but here's the whole point, and this is something that's really made me think. As a gut and metabolic health specialist, and me being specializing in the gut, most people don't realize, and I didn't plan on talking about this tonight, but it is kind of important that insulin resistance is tied to the gut, and I'll get into that. But one of the things is in the gut, our serotonin, our happy hormone, is produced. 70% of that is produced in the gut. And so part of this protocol is getting the gut, and I'll spend some significant amount of time talking about that. But when our gut's balanced, our happy hormone starts to get balanced, and you will feel better. So that's one of the reasons we start to feel better. The other thing is that as you listen to Wayne talk tonight, is this is not something that we share as a weight loss protocol. I want you to notice what he said. The very first thing that came out tonight, he said, "Hey, my inflammation started to go away." Most of us are having issues with our weight because we're inflamed inside. We're in an inflammation overload. And tonight, if you're in inflammation and you're dealing with weight as well, right, it will be almost impossible to healthily get your weight off until we get the inflammation down. And that's what one of the things that this protocol does a great job at, is helping you reduce your inflammation. I've had clients time and time again say, "Scott, well, I've been at 30 days and I don't understand it. I stand on the scale and I've only lost maybe a pound or two, but I'm down 2 sizes of clothes. What's going on?" Well, actually, what it is doing is we're starting to heal. We're getting the inflammation away. We're starting to redistribute your water and your muscle and things in the right places to start to heal inside. And then the excess fat will come off. Okay, so Wayne, those were such great talking points. I could not pass those up tonight. I had to share those because exactly what you're sharing with us is exactly what this protocol is supposed to do, and how it helps when used appropriate. Let me go into a couple other things that I think is important. A lot of the things that we're talking about is that insulin resistance is about hormonal timing. You see, I mentioned this earlier, but every time you eat, insulin rises. And I mentioned that. And that's what this graph is starting to show. And that's normal. Insulin moves nutrients into storage, glucose into cells, energy into the liver, and excess into fat. But here's what most people don't realize. When insulin is elevated, okay, the body is in storage mode. Fat cannot be released efficiently. Can't be released efficiently. I couldn't get that out. If insulin never stays low long enough, this vault where that fat is stored, it never opens. Most people eat in a way that keeps insulin rising throughout the day, and that's the way we were taught. We eat a meal in the morning, we snack, and maybe then have coffee with a cream or something like that in the morning. Then we snack and we have our lunch, and then maybe we snack in the afternoon, then we do dinner, and then we snack. We never allow our insulin to drop to a baseline. And this is where time-based eating, aka fasting, and don't leave this live when you hear that word and get excited about fasting. We're not going to sit here and tell you to start doing a bunch of caloric restriction. we're going to talk about when you eat. For example, I can show you time after time where we have somebody that may eat 2,000 to 3,000 calories. Actually, when they eat, they can lose weight. But if someone is eating 1,500 calories to 1,800 calories all day long, they'll gain weight. That's counterintuitive to what we've been told, but it's all about when we eat. Okay, so what we're trying to do is those spikes, those peaks, those dips in that graph that you're seeing. What we're trying to do is widen those out and get those further apart, so it allows your insulin to come down. So let me go to the next slide. I want to talk to you about this a little bit and help you understand how our body works. Okay, so Wayne, you've probably heard before, eat 6 to 8 small meals a day, right? Small them, eat all the time, right? Were you ever taught that? This is kind of impromptu. I didn't hit you with that question before, but you've heard that before, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Keep your metabolism by going. Keep metabolism going by eating all day long. So
right. Well, I'm going to be real clear tonight. That's rubbish. And to be honest with you, science does not promote that at all, and it doesn't show that. That actually, when we do that, right, the problem is, and I want you to look at this graph, is when we eat all the time, our insulin stays elevated. So if we look at this graph here a minute, this is how our body works. When we stop eating from hour 0, and this is an estimate because everybody's a little bit different, depends on how healthy their gut is. But when we stop eating from 0 to up to 12 hours, okay, we will burn the sugar off in our bloodstream. And then we move to burning our glycogen, which is our stored sugar in our liver, which we hold 300 to 500 grams of that inside our liver. And then at hour 12 to 16 to 12 to 18, depending on how metabolically healthy we are, then we start burning fat. And we burn that fat off and turn it into fatty acids. And then also those fatty acids, because our brain loves ketones, our liver will convert some of those into ketones for our brain to use. Okay. So the whole point of showing you this is if you think, I quit eating it at hour 7 or at 7 p.m. in the evening, and I went to midnight, and then I get up and do a midnight snack, we never burnt any fat. Our body was still in glucose burn mode. So we still stay in fat storage mode. If you eat something in between hours 0 and hours 12, for most of us, we will always stay in a fat storage mode. And that's the point of this graph, is to be able to get to a point where we have a window of where we are eating what we want to try to get folks to is to a 16-8 window, meaning we fast for 16 hours and we have an 8-hour window where we eat. Now, again, don't get excited about that, because we're going to show you an easy way to do that, because the first time I heard this, I wanted to run the other way, because and that's why I don't like to call it fasting as much as I do about time-based eating. Okay. So one of the things that's really, really important for our diet is our fiber. And this is something that we've done in our lifestyle is we've removed fiber from our diet. Fiber is very, very important. And one of our protocol that we're going to show you, one of the tools we use, is around fiber. And we're going to share specifically about the fiber that we use. But it slows glucose spikes. Fiber lowers insulin. It feeds the gut bacteria. And about only 5% of us are getting enough fiber a day, right? Think about it. How many of you are really getting 35 grams of fiber a day? Most of us aren't. And when fiber disappears, inflammation increases. The other thing I want you to look at is why are we here? Why are we sick? And if you look at this graph here for a moment, the leading cause of death in high-income countries are due to preventable types of diseases. Look at this graph for a moment. Heart disease, Alzheimer's, stroke, pulmonary artery disease, cancers, kidney disease, heart disease, diabetes. All of these, 9 out of 10 of these, are all preventable. And I'll argue that number 6 on this, lower respiratory infection, is also related to insulin resistance, or unhealthy gut, because when our gut is unhealthy, where 70% of our immune system comes from, number 6, we are highly susceptible to.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the latest and greatest data, number 6 has moved out, and all top 10 are there. But it's skewed a little bit because of some of the things that happened in 2020 with some of the pandemic items. But regardless of that, 9 to 10 of these are all preventable. Now, what happened? If you look in the 1970s and the 80s, we had several things that happened. Obesity and type 2 diabetes took off in the late 1970s to 1980s. And I remember looking at pictures of my grandfather and my dad and different people, and they were all skinny. It was like, what in the world happened to us? So what has changed in the last 50 years? And so let's go through that for a minute. 3 changes I'm going to look at. The first one is the food industry is adding sugar by 100 different names. Look at all this differences way, even what I'd say healthy sugar. Yes, even honey, right? It's good for you, used in moderation and at the right times. But most of our sugar, or most of our products, have sugar in it. 74% of our packaged food contain added sugar. And most people don't realize how bad sugar is used, or how bad sugar is for you, even in a lot of these healthy names on this list. But here's the real key factor. I want you to look at this. Addiction. Studies indicate that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. That's why we crave sugar. Sugar basically causes our gut bacteria to be imbalanced, and we start to crave sugar. And I'll talk more about that here in a second. Number 2, the food industry is stripping fiber from our food. Fiber, if you remember, I said slows glucose. Fiber lowers our insulin response. Fiber feeds healthy gut bacteria. But when we refine foods, we strip fiber. God packaged our food in fiber. Even sugar, cane sugar comes wrapped in that fibrous material, right? And I've had that in the Dominican Republic, where you chew on the cane sugar, but it comes has fiber around it. Apples are much healthier than apple juice because that fiber in that apple will help reduce your glucose. So healthy juices aren't so healthy. Fiber helps us feel fuller. And like I said, it lowers our glucose spikes. So if we eat fiber with our food, right, when we eat, it lowers those glucose spikes. It feeds the beneficial bacteria in our stomach or in our guts. When we have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, we get into what we call dysbiosis. And that's when we get inflammation. And inflammation inside our guts leads to leaky gut, which eats holes in our stomach and then allows things to leak into our bloodstream that causes that inflammation, Wayne, that you were talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why, Wayne, when you said, hey, when I started taking this protocol and we focused on fiber, and you said your inflammation went away, you were starting to repair your gut. And no longer do you get into inflammation overload. Well, inflammation inside of our body messes with insulin signaling. And when insulin signaling gets messed up, our cells no longer are efficient of using insulin, and that's part of insulin resistance, okay? And then also fiber can help lower our triglycerides because we are in fact getting into a point where we are not getting spikes anymore as much, and our liver starts working better. The third change that happened to us is our government guidelines steered us in the wrong direction. In the 1980s and 90s, we were told that fat is the enemy. So we replaced fat with refined carbohydrates, 6 to 11 grains per day. Snack frequently, eat every 2 to 3 hours. That means insulin never gets a break. Think about it. Wayne, what do we feed cows to make them fat?
Energy.
Yeah, grains, right? We feed
grains.
Them
yep.
oats, corn. Yeah, right? And so that's what causes cows to be fat and our pigs to be fat, right? Well, that's what we did to ourselves. We said eat 6 to 11 grains a day. And not only that, the grains we were eating aren't wrapped in the fiber that our our parents and our grandparents and before that used to eat, it looks very different. So basically, we're just injecting sugar right into us. And the minute we eat those grains, goes our insulin spike. So, end result is only 7% of the American population is metabolically healthy. 93% are somewhere on that spectrum that you see on the screen. That means insulin resistance is not rare and it's normal. One of the things that I wanted to make certain you understand tonight is that used to, and I think, Wayne, when I used to hear about insulin resistance, I used to think about diabetic. Right?
Yep.
Well, let me say this to the group here on the phone tonight. If you are type 2 diabetic, not type 1, I want to be very clear about this. Type 2 diabetic, you're insulin resistant. Okay? But you can be insulin resistant and not type 2 diabetic. So we're not just speaking to type 2 diabetics on this call tonight. My sugars were normal. My wife's weren't, but I was insulin resistant. I couldn't get rid of the belly fat. I couldn't get rid of my psoriasis. It shows up in different ways depending on the damage to our gut. So I just want to make certain folks understand that it isn't necessarily we're talking to type 2 diabetes or to type 2 diabetics. It's all the things that were on that circle earlier tonight. So insulin resistance is at the root cause of many of these things that today that we are trying to manage with medicine, right? Alzheimer's, now the new type 3 diabetes, brain fog, depression, migraines, high blood pressure, PCOS and ED in men, fatty liver disease, all controlling these things or trying to manage these things with medication. It's not just old age, right? It's because of our insulin resistance. And Wayne's proved that. I've met Wayne, and let me tell you, he's a ball of fire. And so, Wayne, I see you going past 85. I hear that every time we do a live. You say, well, I want to at least get 85. I think we're talking 90s in your future.
Yeah,
so
we hope so.
Yeah. At the end result, only 5% of us are getting enough fiber. And you can see, and I'm not going to go through this graph in a lot, but it's so important to get that fiber to keep our guts healthy so that our immune system's good, so that we can keep our inflammation down, so that we don't get those toxins within our body through leaky gut, right? And so our two root causes, insulin resistance and unhealthy gut, cause all these things here that you're seeing here tonight. I'm going to take about 2 or 3 minutes and share my story. I think this is the first time I've shown pictures of
It
me
is.
and
First time I've seen it.
Yeah. So my wife usually joins me. And I got into this business, into the gut and metabolic health business about 5 or 6 years ago because I had ulcerative colitis and my father died of colon cancer. And I had gotten ulcerative colitis and my doctors could not really help me figure out what's going on. They wanted to put me on a lot of medication. And the medication was making me sick. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but I also developed psoriasis. And if you've ever had ulcerative colitis, it can be a lot of pain. It causes a lot of urgency. And so uncomfortable situations, and just a lot of pain and anxiety as well. And now as I've studied to be a gut health specialist, I understand where that anxiety comes from because your serotonin and your dopamine is messed up inside your gut. And when that happens, it really causes you to feel anxious. And it doesn't come from the head. It's caused because the signaling between the gut and the brain are messed up. And I developed a protocol to help me deal with the ulcerative colitis, but it was quite complicated. And back in 2025, in March of 2025, a gentleman named Alan Kashner contacted me, and Alan was going to join us tonight. He saw me on TikTok talking about some different protocols and some things, and he said, "Hey, I think I've got the thing for you." Now, my background's in engineering, and I was pretty skeptical listening to Alan of what he had to say, and I'll be honest with you, I pushed back and said, "I'm not interested." Alan was persistent, and thank God he was, and I listened. And my wife was dealing with prediabetes at the time. And she said, let's give this a shot because I was working on a protocol And after I got into the protocol and looked at all the patents and what it was made, I'm like, hey, this is what I've been looking for in 2 small packages versus like a whole list of nutraceuticals in a bottle, right? And costing hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month. So in April of last year, I went on the protocol, and in 16 weeks, I lost 45 pounds. Blood pressure went from, I didn't have super high blood pressure, but it went down into the very normal range. Reduced inflammation in my body, don't have aches and pains like I did, increased energy, and just I feel, I'm 52, and I feel as good as I did in my late 20s or my early 30s, and my psoriasis has improved. I'm still not at the weight I exactly want to be, but you losing 45 pounds, that's a huge deal. My wife lost 40 pounds, uh, and I can share this with you tonight. She let me, but not only did she lose her 40 pounds in 2 to 3 weeks, she went from being pre-diabetic range of 130 to 140 blood sugar, resting blood sugars or fasting blood sugars in the morning, down to 80s and the 90s in the mornings within 2.5 to 3 weeks. And a year later, she is off all of her antidepressants, um, which is really,
Great.
really awesome. And she'd been on those for 30 years. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight. Oops, I went back a slide. Didn't mean to do that. So what I want to do now is, this is time to where we want to share with you the protocol. And Wayne, I'm going to have you share about the time-based eating and things like that here in a minute. I'm going to share on the 2 products, and you can help me do that if I miss something. But first, I want to start out with our fiber. And we have 2 fibers that we use, 2 flavors of an orange and a berry flavor. But as we talked, is the fiber feeds the good bacteria in your gut. Your gut microbiome plays a huge part in your digestion, inflammation, your immune system, like what I said earlier. And you can see the benefits that we experience with this product. Better blood sugar balance, reduce carbohydrate absorption, and that's what you see in that screen there. And it's awful hard to see. But basically, the University of Sydney said that, when you take this balance and you use it, this fiber, and you take it before we eat, what it does is it drops your blood sugar spikes by 35 to 45%. And that's one of the key things is the order in which we eat our food. Fiber and protein, and then healthy fats, and then carbohydrates. And this is what this tool allows us to do, is to keep those blood sugar spikes down, is one of the big benefits of it. It supports for healthy weight management and better digestive health, which is I am super stoked about, because I've been studying fiber for the last 5 to 7 years. I have not found a better fiber on the market than this fiber. It really does a great job, and our good gut bacteria really like it, and the bad gut bacteria really hate it. And so it helps us get out of dysbiosis and into a more diverse microbiome in our body. And then also, if you can read it down here, it's a little hard. I'm going to read it to you from the Cleveland Clinic. It says, such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis and potentially decrease the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. In other words, cholesterol drugs, triglycerides like Tricor and things like that. It'll help reduce this. In fact, it works better in a lot of clinical studies than those drugs themselves, without the side effects, which is really cool. But I want you to understand, it not only does that, it doesn't manage. The way it does it by starting to heal the body from the inside out. So this isn't a protocol that just manages. It's a protocol that starts to heal your body. And that's the critical difference. Then the next one that we have is another tool, which is called Yerba Mate. It focuses on something many people struggle with, fasting and going longer periods without eating. And Wayne's going to talk about the timing, but this product here, this is what helps make the big difference in helping me personally get into a fasted state, because I said, hey, I will never be able to fast. And I couldn't. With fixing my gut and starting to take those cravings away and using this Yerba Mate plant and this Yerba Mate tea, it really helps do that. And one of the biggest and this drink also supports your metabolic or your metabolic processes that makes that fasting easier and more sustainable. But one of the key reasons is something called your GLP-1. Now, this is not a GLP-1, but our body has a natural GLP-1, which is a hormone your body produces. And GLP-1 plays a huge and important role in helping regulate appetite, blood sugar balance, and feeling of fullness. And research has shown with this product and that the ingredients in this product will help the body produce up to 67% more GLP-1. And when GLP-1 rises, people often notice they feel fuller, longer, and experience fewer cravings. And so that's what this product does. It really helps. It also helps maintain your mental clarity, supports your energy and endurance, promoting feelings of good well-being. It supports your body's natural ketone production during your fasting period or your time-based eating when you can eat. And when your body shifts more efficiently into fat-burning metabolism, many people notice more stable energy throughout the day. So this product is really awesome and helps you get through those periods when we're not eating, keeps you sustained, keeps you feeling good, and it does it in a natural way. Okay, Wayne, talk to us about, kind of close us out here tonight. How hard is it? How do you use it? When do you use it? And then I got the next slide about, how do you get it and things like that. And I'll let you share that. So if you just take us out tonight and share with us, is this a hard product to use and how you go? And I'll show some of the different flavors as we're going along here. I've got them all with me tonight. So
okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So, when I first started this, I thought there is just no way I can fast. I mean, I was a midnight snacker. My bowl of cereal about 11 o'clock, midnight, go to bed for a while, get up, have your snack, have my bowl of cereal. I thought there's no way I could fast, but we were going to give it a shot. And I was just really totally amazed after within a week, my hunger cravings were just gone with the yerba mate that we start with. My personal day, I get up about 5 o'clock in the morning. First thing I do before I leave for work is I'll mix me up one of these unimates, and I start sipping on that in the morning right off the bat on my way to work. I used to take a cup of coffee to work with me. Now I sip on my unimate on the way to work. When I get to work, I'll have a cup or 2 cups of coffee along with it in the morning. But I got my coffee on my desk. I got my water on my desk, and I always have a unimate, on the desk with me as well. And I just sip on it. That's the way we suggest it gets done. You sip on it. You just keep sipping on it. Sip on it all morning long, and you would just be totally amazed what it does as far as getting rid of your hunger cravings. On the hype on the TV, all the GLP-1s and all this kind of stuff that people are talking about. And I guess I'll stop here a minute. If you watch those commercials, watch them way to the end till they talk about the side effects. I mean, really listen to them once. All the side effects of that could happen with these GLP-1s that are being promoted out there by the pharmaceuticals. But that's my little pitch. But our body, God created our bodies with natural GLP-1s. But like Scott said, this particular yerba mate helps increase that natural GLP-1, which kind of curbs those cravings for food. And there again, I call it my happy drug. It just gives you a feeling of feeling good. So I'll sip on this unimate all morning. Sometimes I'll put in a 40 ouncer and I'll mix up 2 different flavors in one. There's lots of different ways you can do it. So it's just really simple. The protocol is so simple. I am just sold on it. I'm in the trucking industry. I have tons and tons of truck drivers that are my friends, and this is a protocol that would work great. It works great for them because they do not have the opportunity to eat like they probably should because they're on the road, they're driving, they're sitting there all day long, and they're tending to snack. And this program just fits them beautifully, and it can fit anybody. But I kind of feel for my truck driving buddies, and that's why it's another passion of mine to share this with them. But so I'll sip on this Unimate all morning. When it comes to noon, we talked about that 16-hour fast. Well, if I quit eating at 8 o'clock at night, by noon, I've got my 16 hours in. Then sometimes I'm hungry, but the more and more we're on the Udamati, the less and less we really feel the urge to eat. So if I'm not hungry, I don't eat. But normally we'll have our meal at noon. And if we do break our fast, we try to break it with a very, like a high protein. Some people say, oh, I love my breakfast. I love my eggs and I love my bacon. Great. Just have your eggs and bacon when you break your fast. Perfect way to break your fast with high proteins. That in actuality you'll see that flame burning there. If we break our fast with high proteins, chances are we'll keep that fat burning going right on through the afternoon. Then we go back, we'll start sipping on a Unimate again in the afternoon. We try to stay away from snacks as much as you can. We are in an 8-hour eating window, but the more things you stay away from and you sip on that Unimate all afternoon till dinner time, just the better it is because we'll stay in that fat burning mode. Then we come to the balance that we have, and another friend of Scott and I is a person that we know quite well, Trent Tueller. I always get a kick out of it. He said it's like a salad in your back pocket, and that's truly it's just like a huge garden salad, and you have it in your back pocket. And we take this just before we eat our biggest meal. We'll mix this up. We'll chug this. The Unimate, the herbal mates we sip on all day long. Just sip, sip, sip. You don't want to drink these fast with the chlorogenic acids and stuff in it. You probably get a tummy ache. But sip on these all day long. This one here, the balance, we'll mix it up with our water, just chug it right down. That does a couple different things. It fills your stomach up so you're not as hungry, so you won't eat as much. Looks like Scott just picked up his bottle there, but yeah, there you go. And Scott will tell you about kind of how that works. But you chug that down just before we eat. The one thing that kind of fills your stomach up, and it so you're not going to eat as much. You'll get full faster. The other thing about it is it coats your stomach. So when these foods go in there, your carbs and your sugars will absorb into your body much slower, which as Scott was talking about, the spikes. We're trying to keep those insulin spikes down as much as we can. So, we take this before our biggest meal, and some people will take two of them a day. Personally, I do. I'll quite often take one at noon and one at my noon meal and one at the evening meal. But they talk about it in our program to, have two Unimates a day, one balance with our biggest meal, and then go back into your fast. And it is just the easiest thing. We don't count calories, so you don't say, oh boy. Now, if you want to have occasionally, dessert, you want to have your dessert, like Scott said, let's have our fiber first, and then our proteins, and then our carbs. And you know what? We're gonna have a birthday party here this weekend from one of my grandsons. I'll guarantee you, I'm gonna have a piece of cake, and that's okay. We don't deprive ourselves of the good things of life as well. We just do the time-based eating, and along with these simple protocols that we have, and it is just so amazingly easy to do. And once you get used to it, I've gone 24 hours, I've gone 36 hours. I've actually did a 72-hour fast just using these, using the balance and the Unimate. And it's just amazing what long-term fasting what does to your body as far as healing it. So, you know, it's all about the time-based eating and getting good foods. These are just tools we use to help us, and it makes it so easy. It makes it so easy. So, all yours, Scott.
All right, let me try to get to the next slide here. Okay, so let me just share a little bit about the product and how you can get it. First of all, tonight I'm trying to do something here with my. There we go. So this product has 5 patents on it. Okay, and you heard me talk earlier about the patents, and that's really, really important. And it has a couple that's actually pending, but you really can't get this. You can't get this product anywhere else. And it's locked up with this company to keep it clean, to keep it really, really where it's sourced, and to make certain that the right ingredients are within inside the product. And if you notice on the slide, it says in PDR. What that means is in the physician's desk reference. And that's really important. If you go to pdr.net, that is pdr.net on the web, and you look at that and you type in Unamate Balance, Unamate, or I'm sorry, Unicity Balance, Unicity Unamate, you'll be able to see those in there. That is what your doctors and your pharmacists use to look up dosing and to be able to look at how if there's any side effects with products. So your doctors can see this. So if you're on metformin, or if you're on insulin or something like that, and you start this protocol and want to start to work with them, they can look at this product and see exactly what's in there and how to use that. It's over 20 plus clinical studies done with reputable universities, and to be able to study these and show how effective they are. They're safe and natural. It's a nutraceutical. It's not a pharmaceutical. It's guaranteed. And what that means is the company stands behind it so much, they'll guarantee it for 90 days. If you use this product for 90 days and you follow the protocol, they will give back 100% of your money in that 90 days if you aren't happy with it. And then I'm going to say it's cost neutral. And the reason it is when you go to time-based eating, and your eating habits will change, you'll save between $5 and $10 a day just using this product. Okay. And so what the cost of the product is around $5.30 a day. When you do that, $159 a month. That's the pricing that you get from Wayne and I and other people that are distributors for this product. You get our pricing. You can find this out on the web at like Amazon or some other places, and you need to be careful because there's a few companies out there that are trying to knock it off and have developed some counterfeits. So you may not be getting the right product if you don't get it from one of us distributors, or the product could be old and they've had it and then they try to resell it on Amazon, and then they'll sell it at a much higher price. And so you want to be really, really careful with that. The other thing I mentioned is it's in over 62 countries now, which is extremely hard to do and get certified. And this is something that the company really prides itself in being able to share in so many different countries. So tonight, if this is something that has resonated with you and you're interested in, want to learn more about it, make certain you get a hold of Wayne or myself. We'll be willing to help you. We're here to help you. There were some other people that joined tonight that if you were invited by somebody else, reach out to them and they'd be glad to help you, because more was likely somebody that works with us on this. Reach out to them, but reach out to one of us and we would be glad to help you. Wayne, did I miss anything tonight?
Oh, you never do, Scott. You nail it. You knock it out of the park every time. So,
hey, one thing I do on it, there's a lot of new exciting flavors. There's a new chocolate mint, caffeine free.
yeah.
If you're nervous about being caffeine sensitive, we got a lemon and a chocolate mint, that chocolate brownie mint. This is awesome in my coffee. I do this one in the coffee in the morning instead of using cream or sugar, right? Because we need to.
That's what I've been sipping on tonight. My chocolate.
Yeah, our raspberry pomegranate for the Unamate is great. We've got a lemon ginger. We have a lemon, and we also have a lemon caffeine free. We have an orange fiber and a berry fiber, which I think is almost like doing dessert. It's absolutely awesome. So anyway, a lot of different flavors to offer people, and really exciting. And it is easy. My wife loves it because she just carries them in her purse. I put them in my bag wherever I go. Got them in the center console of the car. We find these all over the place. They're like change.
Yep.
And that they're all over the place. So anyway, but tonight we would just like to say thank you for joining. You could have been somewhere else tonight. You could have chosen to do something else instead of focusing on your health. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for doing that. Reach out to one of us. Your body was designed by God to heal. It was designed to function in balance. But when that centers off, folks, everything fills off. The good news is that you do not have to stay stuck. You don't have to manage symptoms forever, right? There's a way. You don't have to accept fatigue. You don't have to accept all those symptoms that you saw there today. Just getting older is not the right answer, right? There is an answer to healing. And if something what's that?
Your body is worth $5.30 a day. Just what else would you would you spend? I just can't. I can't express that enough. Spend your money, $5 a day, to get your health back and to live a long, healthy quality of life. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's a no-brainer.
And with the 90-day money back guarantee, no risk, it's no risk, right?
That's right.
This could
That's
be
right.
your moment, folks, to reset. We're here to support you. I know Wayne will support you. I'll support you. We'd love to walk through the journey with you. You are made to feel great. You are made to feel things with clarity, and you are made for purpose. So, folks, thank you so much for joining tonight. Look for us again next Monday night. We'll have a little bit different story and some different people, some additional people on here. We'd love you to share. Bring a friend that may be having some of these issues. Help basically save their life. So
Yep.
again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne.